Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL.
Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Gentlemen, it is an evening, and for the fifth time this year, it is not a good evening. You are joining us on the Cover One Buffalo podcast. I'm your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my post-game show partners in crime, Anthony Prohaska and Aaron Quinn. Aaron, I hate to ask you, but how you doing?
It's not good, Greg. Things aren't good. I guess talking about that fifth loss, I guess this goes to show you all that crap we do in the preseason of predicting how teams will be then isn't accurate, really. We have no idea what's going to happen in the season, but this isn't fun. I feel like, though, by the time we get through this, I'll be able to go to bed and wake up and still continue celebrating the Christmas season and get past this terrible loss.
I like it. I like it. Anthony, welcome back to Cover One. I know you had a lot of family obligations going on. How was it at the game tonight? I know you were there in person.
Ooh, I was. The atmosphere was rocking. It was so cool. I've been to a bunch of Bills games. I've never been to a primetime game. This was my first one. It was awesome. The energy was electric. Everybody was super into it. Even super excited to see T.O. Like, it was just a really good time. And then the game happened, and there were some cool things that were fantastic and some things that were not so great. I'm happy my voice survived. I was wilding for a good amount of the first half, but that I saved it for the second. Wasn't too much to get too hyped about, but yeah, it's nice to be back after some bereavement for myself. It's a shame that we just, aren't able to talk about a win.
Yeah. It's you were joining us, and it is not a win because the New England Patriots have upset the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo on Monday Night Football by a score of 14-10. I think, as you, I believe, accurately predicted, the weather was a factor, but not as crazy as the videos you saw during the day. There was literally a gale force blizzard going on for most of the afternoon. That was
My
crazy.
wife was driving home and light poles came down in the middle of the 290. There were just 4 or 5 light poles just fell in the middle of the 290.
Yeah, it was bad news. I saw some pictures of that. Matter of fact, one of them fell right in front of our friend Chad DeDominicis, who covers the Sabres, had like a picture of it and said he watched it fall and it hit the engine of the car in front of him, and he said it could have hit the body of the car.
Yeah, my wife was like,
killed
4
people.
Cars behind him.
Oh God! It was scary stuff, man.
The one day I don't take the 290. I was in the South Towns all day. That's wild.
So obviously the weather was a huge factor. We'll get into it. The Patriots ran the ball 46 times to 3 passes. It was difficult to move the ball. We saw crazy impacts on the kicks with 15-yard punts into the wind and 71-yard punts with the wind. We saw a couple field goals made. We saw a field goal missed. Ultimately, this came down to some tough decisions, some red zone execution. We'll go into some of the detail, but ultimately in the red zone, the Patriots were 0 of 1. The Bills were 1 of 4. 4 red zone possessions, and you walk away with 10 points. A lot of things, I think we were talking pre-show, a lot of stuff's going to get made of, the run defense and things like that. And there was the one killer, explosive run. But beyond that, the Patriots, 11 first downs total, 241 total yards, 2 of 12 on third down. They weren't killing them. Like, I know it felt horrible. It felt like my soul was leaving my body every time they were running the ball, and it was, kicking me in the gut. But ultimately, the Bills had opportunities to win this game despite those things and could not execute in the moments that mattered when they had a chance to be able to win this game. And we'll talk about some of those kind of woulda, shoulda, coulda plays. But Aaron, what were your high level thoughts?
Yeah, I think you hit one on the head. We're going to hear a lot about the run defense on Twitter. We're already hearing a lot about it. And I felt like I was a little bit crazy seeing the reactions to it that I saw versus what I felt I was watching. And we'll get a little bit more when we get the tape on it. But outside of maybe a handful of explosives, you had the big 64-yard one. I know there was another 25-yard one, and there was like a few 10, 15 yarders that leaked out a little bit. But outside of that, it seemed like the Bills were forcing New England to punt. They were getting the ball back, limited them to 14 points, 2 field goals, and a touchdown with that 2-point conversion. So it felt like the defense actually did their job. I think a lot's going to be made out of that. They got the ball run all over them, but like you just read off those stats, 11 first downs is not a big deal. Getting the ball back the amount of times the Bills did is good. The defense for the most part did their job, and they really held. There was that one really long sustained drive. I think going in the third quarter into the fourth.
Yeah, that they ultimately held.
Milano came through
them in the game.
Yeah, that field goal was huge. That was almost a game-defining moment for that defense because it gave the Bills still a chance, and they had actually 2 opportunities to go back down and drive because of the defense. So I think actually the defense did better than people are talking about. I think the conversation that they're soft isn't true. This was a really weird game for a team to run 40 times. That wears any defense, any rotation down. Like, you're going to leak out a few times in that manner. But you take that 64-yard touchdown away. Again, you can't in hindsight, but that big explosive play is ultimately the difference in this game. Nobody was able to make up for that.
Anthony, what were your kind of high-level thoughts just as you watched?
I think it's very easy to be reactionary. Like, especially off air, like we're all distraught, the 3 of us, and then everybody in the chat obviously as well. But I think this is a game where, and we talked about it off air, and Aaron alluded to some of it now. Like, this is a game where it was so close and it was so tight. So every single play almost is put under a microscope. So every five-yard run, every first down. And so everything just seems like it's the worst thing. And so I don't think I think there's a bit of overreaction when it comes to like how people are feeling about the Bills. But at the end of the day, this is a matchup league, and we came up against a team who knows how to exploit weaknesses, who knows how to play matchups, and they took advantage of it on both sides of the ball to a certain degree. And the Bills had opportunities to win this game. They had plenty of them, opportunities to take control. And this is one of those games where the momentum sways one way or the other. One team makes a play, the other one does it, and you see the result that happened. And unfortunately, just not enough plays went in the Bills' favor. And, we're sitting here with a loss. But I think to be too high or too low on the Bills right now, again, is still reactionary, and I get it, and it sucks. But everything just feels put under a microscope, unfortunately, due to how this game went out.
Hey, let's start with Josh Allen. Like we normally do. I thought that I thought he gave the team a chance. I thought that he played pretty well in spite of the conditions. A couple plays where we'll get to it when we talk about the offensive line. It's hard when, I think he's only technically sacked twice. There were certainly plenty of pressures and plenty of times where he's having to bail out. You talk about plays like that. Matt Judon uses Tommy Sweeney to knock Josh Allen to the ground. There were plenty of other plays where Josh had to bail out. They showed it on the broadcast where, oh man, if Josh was able to keep his eyes up here at this point, but he's trying to scramble, he misses. And they showed, would they do that 3 different times during the night where they showed players available downfield? I get the people who are frustrated with Josh there. I would love if he was also able to keep his eyes downfield in those moments, but it's tough when you get defenders coming right at you and you're bailing out and you're trying to keep yourself alive. The one play, where he finds Dawson Knox in the end zone when, Phillips knocks it away at the last moment. What did he evade? 3 different rushers on that play, including a stiff arm on Dietrich Wise to get himself free. So I don't think it was a perfect game by Josh Allen, but I think with the weather conditions, with the wind, with the offensive line and the blocking, I don't have a lot of frustration with Josh tonight. I have, again, there's some moments I'd love for him to make a miraculous, perfect play. I'd love for the win not to take some of those balls, but, we were able to throw the ball 30 times when the other team could only throw it 3 times. And there were several give up plays where, they ran the ball on 3rd and 17, 3rd and 14, 3rd and 12, where they literally gave up knowing that, well, we got a short lead. We just got to hope we can hold on because they didn't trust their quarterback to throw the ball. And ultimately, that looks genius. That looks great. If the Bills score on either of those last 2 red zone possessions, there's an awful lot of New England fans asking me like, hey, couldn't you have tried to throw the ball once? Couldn't you try play action once? Like, again, in hindsight, that's going to look brilliant. And of course, Bill Belichick's a genius because he ran the ball 46 times and passed it 3 times. I don't have a lot of fault with Josh. Aaron, how did you feel as far as where he felt in this ultimate result?
Yeah, no, I had said it going into the final 2 drives. Like, Josh now at that point in the game had to put really the game on his shoulders. No one else was helping. No one else was stepping up. They were trying the run game in the wind. I think if there's anything, it's that they didn't let Josh get cooking a little bit earlier and get into some type of a groove. He showed a number of times that he could throw in the wind with the wind at his back. It wasn't always going to be perfect. There was going to be some balls that went out there, but he was showing even when they flipped into the second quarter and the wind was at their back, that he was able to make some of these throws that the Patriots were scared to do. And so the Bills not getting him going a little bit earlier, and even when the play breaks down, his ability, you saw that 20-something yard run by him late in the game. Like, that ability was not put on display earlier. And I think that's my problem. It isn't anything Josh did wrong in this game. And I think he did fine on, in that fourth quarter, he put him on his back and led down drives, and those drives stalled. That's not entirely his fault. I think he did all he could. It just still wasn't enough to get over the hump tonight, but I would have liked to have seen more earlier on of putting Josh in position to win the game with his arm. And when the arm wasn't available, then to go and use his legs and get those big plays, because the run game, when we'll get to that in a second, I think ultimately that was the biggest issue in this game.
Anthony, how about you, whether it's Josh or into the run game?
I think Aaron's spot on with that last comment there at the end. I think the play of the offensive line and then collectively, like, the run game aspect of the offense is what kind of limited the Bills tonight. I put a tweet out. I know I was a bit out of the office, as you mentioned the last week or so, but before I left the office, one of the things going into this week was how much man coverage the Patriots play and how much single high looks they show both pre and post snap. And it was like, okay, like, do they come into this game against the Bills doing that? Granted, the weather obviously played a factor, but what was cool being there at the game, I got to see, I didn't have a broadcast view, I had a full picture view, and the Pats were coming out in single high almost every time, and they were mugging gaps around the line of scrimmage. They were mugging the receivers. They were bringing everything around, so they made life hard for Josh Allen in the pass game. And you saw the Bills try to go a quick screen on a check on an alert from Josh, I believe, on the second drive, and Manning just gets rocked. You saw them try to establish the run and just wasn't working, seeing what they could do. And I think it all started to fall on to Josh and Aaron's point. Yeah, I think they started to try and, okay, forget it. We got to put the ball in Josh's hands towards the end, and it started to move the ball a little bit. But the Pats had a really good game plan to try and make life difficult for Josh. There was not a lot of windows and guys that were open. Again, like I want to go back and see the film. I mean, I don't want to see the film, but I'm going to. My vantage point at the game, like, it was just tough. Like, the Pats made life difficult play after play against Josh and what they were able to do. And there were opportunities there, and just Diggs doesn't make that catch. Josh doesn't get it to Diggs on that back shoulder throw on the last drive. There were some plays there that he could have made, but I feel like a lot of it, again, came down to him, evading rushers and having to make plays because the rest of the offense isn't, for lack of a better term, carrying its own weight, I guess. Tonight was a night where we needed him to be hands down the best player on the field and carry us to a win. I think he played well. It's just unfortunate that he wasn't that 10 out of 10 that was able to get us the win.
As we shift to the run game, ultimately the stats look deceiving because it looks like 25 carries for 99 yards at 4 yards a carry. 6 out of 39 of that is Josh Allen in scrambles and conversions and him picking up multiple critical first downs. Then you add in the one late Devin Singletary run of 17 yards. All of a sudden, you're talking about 56 of those 99 yards. The remaining 43 yards on the other 18 carries were Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and Matt Breida for the rest of the night. And, it's just that kind of game where you're talking about 2.4 yards a carry with those guys. It was frustrating because in the moment where you have these crazy weather conditions, and I know that you can't throw the ball on every play. Like, you can't sit there in, 40-mile-an-hour gusts and consistent 25-mile-an-hour wind. Craig here saying, respectfully disagreeing, but tired of letting Josh off the hook. He needs to punch one in on one of those last 2 drives. It's what elite quarterbacks do. I appreciate the kind words, but
man.
Yeah, we get it. Like I said, I would love to see Josh get one of those. All right. Ultimately, he put a 60-yard pass into the wind that hit Stephon Diggs in the hands in the end zone. Like, that's what elite quarterbacks do too.
Right.
I thought Diggs did a great job. We'll get to that in the receivers, tracking that ball and giving him a chance. But, with the wind here, I don't know that there's very many quarterbacks in the NFL, period, who could have completed half their passes for 145 yards and a touchdown tonight. I literally don't. I don't think there are more than 2 or 3 other quarterbacks in the NFL.
It's like Mahomes, Rodgers, Allen,
who could have functioned tonight the way that Josh did. So I'm not putting tonight on him. This
Roman
game was
says,
atrocious.
let's talk about the decision to not go for 2. It's overlooked. Why not go early when you have it? We'll talk about that stuff when we get to coaches at the end. I just wanted to put that up because he was a super chat. Appreciate that.
Roman.
And we will circle back to that later.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on Sean McDermott. We'll get to those. But first, the run game. Anthony, we'll start with you on this one. Before you start, real quick, I apologize. I had a second thought. I think that the Patriots are a perfect example as well, to where I still put plenty of this on the offensive line, because I don't think the Patriots have special running backs either. I don't think Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson are dramatically more talented than the Bills running backs. They're not Jonathan Taylor. They're not Alvin Kamara. They're not those kind of elite players, but they run hard behind a really strong offensive line and then get a little bit extra. I think that, they're Zach Moss plus 10%.
The receivers also were fantastic in their blocking tonight too.
Yes, N'Keal Harry, things like that. But Anthony, what were your thoughts as you saw them in person try to get this run game going?
The tale of like the two sides it was just so dramatic seeing it there live. Just the Patriots offensive line was just to a decent degree consistently reestablishing the line of scrimmage. And even when the Bills were making plays in the run game, it was because they were penetrating, they were hitting gaps quick, they were making plays. But the Pats were moving bodies up front with decent regularity. On the flip side, the Bills offensive line was not. There did not seem to be a lot of movement whatsoever, not a lot of space for the running backs to go. And then that falls onto the running backs. Okay, like, can you make a guy miss? Can you take advantage of something? And again, to the flip side, we saw Ramondre Stevenson and we saw Damian Harris break some tackles, make some plays, get hit. It seemed like Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, my wife even mentioned it at the game. She was just like, every time they get hit, they keep getting an extra like 2 or 3 yards after they get hit. And we also weren't seeing that from our running backs. I think this is just constantly falling forward to a frustrating degree. And I think from a Bills perspective, the Bills run game, I think this is just at this point who we are. That's funny from Taylor. Well done. I think this is just who we are on offense. We do not have a physical offensive line. We are still middling in terms of overall talent and ability. We're middling in terms of what we're able to execute, whether it's zone or gap. We don't have a definitive answer either way. And the Patriots have a defense that is really good when it comes to playing against the Bills type of offense. Like the Patriots have big physical dudes in their front seven who move bodies, who penetrate gaps, who plug gaps, who make life difficult for offensive lines and tight ends trying to block them. And they did that today, like, repeatedly. And I respect the Bills for still trying to establish it, but at a certain point, I guess we'll leave this for coaching. It was clear like the running game was not working. We were not getting anything out of that run game. And I think this is who we are at this point. Like I was
so genuinely shocked on that 17-yard run by Devin Sugler. I was like, holy crap, I didn't even know that was possible.
That was even a nice run. Like Phillips tries to shoot that gap and he takes such a shallow angle and Singletary makes the cut. And it's like, oh, like that's a good run. But we just were not seeing that with regularity, whether it was the O-line executing or, again, the running backs making a guy miss. And you get the Breida fumble on the exchange early on the Patriot 30 that ends up, leading to a Patriot touchdown
which
after.
Apparently put Breida on the bench for the rest of the game.
Yeah, he didn't really get burned after that. He also had like kind of an indecision on that kick return piece
He had one
that
nice
bounced off
kick
his
return.
shoulder
He did
pads.
have a nice kick return late on one of the last drives.
So maybe they would kind of put him in the doghouse overall, but I think this is just too. I'm not even too upset about it with the run game because this is what I expect at this point. And I expected this going into the game. We just do not have the run game aspect that is going to make a difference. We have maybe enough of it to keep some teams honest. But yeah, 1000%, he got it. Take a shot every time I say it.
1000%.
We're just
Aaron,
not.
Yeah.
How do you think these receivers did tonight in the conditions? It was really hard. I think a lot of people said ahead of time, be careful. It's going to be really hard to judge players off of this game because it's such a weird situation. How do you think they did considering?
Well, one more point. I just want to go back to the run game real quick. And the only thing that I think I was more frustrated with the lack of productivity in it was not putting anything in the offense to, get on the edges. We saw the Patriots try it without a lot of
CJ
success.
Spiller would do.
Like CJ Spiller would do. Yeah, but even some of like the, we saw it in the preseason, Greg, of using Breida like you would use an Isaiah McKenzie or something like that, getting some of that jet sweep going, just stretching the field onto the edges. Because that's what we saw is when Singletary finally got free, it was a run to the edges and going behind Spencer Brown and getting Morse pulling, some of that stuff to get these guys out in space. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that. It seemed like they were just running into the meat of this big defense with just nothing but no success. So that was really frustrating. We'll get to that when we talk about Dable a little bit more. But these receivers, I think it's a really tough game for them. I expected a little bit more out of Beasley, but that just wasn't really what the offense was calling in this game. I thought that you could offset the lack of ability to run with the short passing game, especially against these middle linebackers. Even in the wind, when you're only passing 5-6 yards, when you have a rocket like Josh Allen, I think you can cut through that and extend. We always talk about an extension of the run game, and that just didn't show up at all tonight. And I don't know why we didn't go towards that, as the run game wasn't, we just kept pounding our head against the wall. And that wasn't working. So it's hard to really get a feel for the receivers as a whole, because the passing game wasn't really there until the last handful of drives in this game. I will say I've been a staunch supporter of Dawson Knox here throughout the year. And I still think he's put together a very nice season, and think I saw a lot of people living in the moment that now all of a sudden he sucks again and all this stuff. Keep in mind, it was a very difficult night out there. I think the first drop, 100% on Dawson Knox dropping that could have been yards after catch, easy first down. He's got to bring that in. That drive pissed me off because you get good field position early on multiple drives, you get nothing out of any of them. The one where Adrian Phillips does make a good play, I think Knox still has to secure that ball and bring it in.
It's not a drop. I'd like my 6'5", 260-pound tight end to be able to hold on to the ball.
It's not, like we were saying earlier, it's not an easy one. We were talking about, we want Josh Allen to keep his eyes up and hit Diggs. It's a pass he's coming back for. He does get his hands on. You want him to secure, but that was a really nice play by the defender. And then the other one was even a better play by the defender, where he gets in front of him and knocks the ball out. Like, people were giving Knox a hard time about that late game one. That's a tough one. Do I want him to make the play? Obviously. Really
jump over and moss the guy.
Yes,
sure,
that would be
awesome.
fantastic. That would love to have seen that. What I really can't have, and this is something that I've seen the Bills continue to do, whether it's a receiver or not, is, you're in scoring position, you're moving the ball on them on a great drive, and Knox goes off sides. And now you're in a 3rd and 14, I think, instead of a 3rd and manageable situation. It's uncalled for, because then you get into these scramble drills. Then you get into him throwing the ball into the end zone and ending the game in that manner. You just can't have that kind of stuff. So for that reason, I was down on this unit. But other than that, considering the conditions, they did what they had to do when called upon. There wasn't anything super egregious. I'm sure when we turn on the film, they were probably also part of the failures in the run blocking, unlike the Patriots side of the ball. So I'm sure there'll be some of that, but hard to really judge them by this game where they didn't really go to them until the end.
Before we go to the next one, Brandon Phaneuf here. McDermott is not capable of leading an NFL team. I don't know if I feel quite that strongly, but I have some concerning thoughts with the way some of the things were handled tonight. We'll get to that. There'll be plenty of thoughts in coaching for how we want to approach these things. Anthony, how about on the offensive line? What were your thoughts on the way they kind of approached it tonight with a tough front seven who knew that you weren't going to be able to throw deep all that often? I don't know that it was the best performance that we've seen.
No, not the best performance. have some thoughts. I was really going to say more for the coaching piece, but I guess I'll just go to it now. Like the Aaron nailed it for me. Like the lack of, I appreciate your the lack of perimeter runs and ability to attack that outside. What you saw from, again, just to use the example because it's a team we played, you saw with the Patriots just multiple kinds of runs.
He's tried it. Carries for Nelson Aguilar, carries for Kendrick Bourne, carries for Jonnu Smith. None of them were effective. Like none of them actually accomplished all that much. However, it plants a seed in the Bills defense where you now have to pay attention to the team going east and west to know, hey, we got to be aware of that. And then all of a sudden your running backs were able to hit it up the middle a little bit more effectively. I would have loved to at least seen that thrown in there as an option.
1,000%. And, when you're doing that and then you're running crack toss and you're running powers and you're running inside zone and outside zone and duo and all these different pieces and aspects. And it seemed like the Bills were, to your point there, just attacking the interior consistently, which is not the strength. I mean, if we have a strength on the offensive line, it's definitely not in the interior. And given how the Pats are built, they are built so solid in that middle with Barmore and Donta Hightower. Gotchow just had a monster game. Every tackle just seemed like
Barmore had a big flash play.
1,000%. I feel like Gotchow had a game because it was all the karma of all the talk like we did in the offseason of like, I can't believe they gave him that contract. Ha, 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 ha. And then he was like, oh, yeah, I got something for you. Like, I'm going to make plays tonight. Yeah, it just didn't get anything. They didn't get any traction in any piece. And again, I think this is what we're living with when it comes to this offensive line. We are not overly athletic and we are not overly physical. And when you're neither of those things, you don't have a thing. That's not great. You don't have a thing.
That sounds like a rough combination.
Correct. It's not good. So you don't have.
Unless you play in a dome.
Yeah, the dome would solve it because then it transforms everyone.
Obviously, everything's fine.
But no, we that's who we are. Like, we don't have a thing to hang our hat on. It's not like, well, you know what, at the end of the day, we know we can do this one thing really great when it comes to the run game or it comes to the goal line, and we don't have that. And then when you're also giving up pressures when it comes to pass protection, that's also the big thing too. Like Josh had a couple, again, because Josh could have made some plays and he could have played better, and I don't want to give him a pass, but there were several snaps where it just snap, boom, guys getting penetration. There was somebody in his face. Spencer Brown got beat really bad on one. Morse got beat really bad inside. Well, there were multiple pressures from the inside. It just seemed like
he had a few pockets too, to be fair.
True. When he did have those pockets,
twice, it's not going to be 20 pressures. It's probably going to be 10 to 12 or something like that. But like I said multiple times in the offseason, like I actually am fine if you want to build a pass first offense with a offensive line that's better at pass blocking than run blocking. That's okay. Yes. But then you got to be able to pass block consistently. Like you can't choose that and then also not really, consistently do that. So again, I don't think that they were a disaster tonight. And I know, Joe, again, people have a lot of feelings about Sean McDermott. Bills were out coached, out head coach. Pats were ready. Bills have a personnel weakness in physical games, and the weather was against them. I'll bring it up here at the end. We're going to talk about them. They're going to get their feedback on how this works. However, if Josh hits Stephon Diggs on that back shoulder throw in the end zone and the Bills win 17-14, is he now a genius and Bill Belichick's an idiot because he only threw the ball 3 times in a loss and didn't even try to pass the ball? Like,
that's exactly what it is. Like, or if Dawson Knox makes one of those catches, we're sitting here and everybody on SportsCenter is like,
Moss is the guy in the end zone and takes it. Like, oh, now Sean McDermott's a genius. Look at, he outcoached, Bill Belichick.
And everybody's talking about how Belichick looks like a fool. Why did he only pass it 3 times?
How did you run the ball 46 times? Only pass it 3 times. What an idiot. So get careful with the outcoach stuff when it's literally, hey, they were down in the end zone, red zone 4 times and had a chance to win this game. Like, if any of those plays go the other way, all of a sudden, Belichick's an idiot and Sean McDermott's a genius. Like, it's very results oriented. We made mistakes. So did they. They had plenty of other really cowardly decisions in the way that they did it. It just turned out in their favor. Let's pause here for a moment before we go too much further. Give some of our sponsors some shine. We'll go through here in a tough situation to be able to find a drive of the game. I think there's at least a couple ones. I think we can be creative tonight because obviously the situation where you have a spot where it's one touchdown is a 1-play 14-yard drive. I guess we could pick that. I actually like the one that you pointed out, Aaron. It's kind of weird to call a play, a drive where you gave up 14 plays and 59 yards on defense.
Yeah.
But that hold at the end where they actually got it together and you had Matt Milano cut through on back-to-back plays and actually give them a shot to stay in the game.
Sure.
I think that was at least, when
the only real glimmer of hope.
Yeah, well, and you talk about the guys in the chat, everybody here feeling the same way, everybody on Twitter, that, oh my gosh, we got the ball ran down our throat the entire night. Well, they had first and goal at the 10-yard line, and if you're getting the ball run down your throat all night, that's a touchdown. Like if you're
felt
really
like it was
getting
about to
dominated,
right.
And they have first and goal at the 10, and exactly what you said, Aaron. Everybody's being honest with themselves. You felt like, well, here we go. They're going to score a touchdown. They're going to go up 18-10 and it's going to end the game, or they'll go for 2 and go up 19-10 and literally end the game. And the Bills held, and they didn't get the ball run down their throat, which is kind of what we were trying to bring up earlier about the defense. Like, hey, I know it feels like we got dominated in that sense, but that's another example where they actually did hold when it mattered. So I'll give that my drive of the game.
Sure.
There weren't a lot of great examples. I don't know. How creative can you be, Aaron? What was your West Her drive of the game?
I'll give that to you. That can be the drive of the game, because it really, at that moment, it went to a break when they got into the red zone, and I was like,
long, painful commercial.
Yeah, long, painful commercial break. I was like, God, man, the way that they're physically dominating this line and moving the ball, well, that was the best drive in my opinion. I actually thought, I think yards. I'm actually talking with Eric Turner in chat because I'm defending the run game, and I don't want it to sound like the Bills did a great job defending the run, right? They clearly leaked out a number of times. The Patriots were able to get a lot of yards in this game. They moved the ball, but that specific drive to me felt like the one where it was like, wow, okay, now they're really pushing us around, dominating. They're going to score here. And then if they score there on a touchdown, that game's out of reach. I don't care what the Bills do. You're not scoring twice to get away with a win. You still kept it a 1-score game, and you gave your team an opportunity.
Just holding them to a field goal. There was no guarantee. That ball moved like 8 yards in the air. It just, for him, instead of Tyler Bass, it moved just outside of the goalpost. For Folk, unfortunately, it moved just barely inside and stayed there. If those two flip, the Bills win 13-11. And it's just balls moving 8 yards in the air. Theirs moved and stayed that far inside the goalpost. Ours went that far outside. We lose 14-10. Otherwise, that's a 13-11 win for the Bills.
Yep. So, yeah, I'm good with that one.
I'm going to go with the after the missed field goal for Tyler Bass. Pats get the ball. They go 3 plays for 6 yards and only take up 1:37. First play, -1 for Ramondre Stevenson. Next play is Mac Jones rolls out, tries to make a play. Dane makes a good play.
For the super first time they actually tried to pass the ball.
Yep.
Very heady by Dane.
Yeah, good play by Dane. Got everybody pumped up.
5-yard runs in a row.
It doesn't bite. Stays in good coverage there. They even forced Mac a little bit, so not everybody overcommitted. And then on 3rd and 11, they make the play on Brandon Bolden and force the punt. I thought that was like a huge one. Like, the Pats have the opportunity again where they have been consistently killing you with the run, or make you think that and then hit you big with play action and gouge you and get the ball and move it upfield. Instead, they get nothing. They go 3 plays, 6 yards, only take up again that 1:37, and the Bills get the ball back. And some people in the chat said, like, I thought that was like a big thing. I was like, that's a huge hold. Let's get the ball back. And then that next drive, you get that awesome play to Diggs, and I was like, okay,
here we go.
Some things are happening. And then my heart got ripped out, and here we are.
All right. So let's, get back to the analysis here. We'll go back to now in the defensive side of the ball. I thought, the defensive line was okay. I thought that they held their own. We saw flashes from Greg Rousseau. We saw a flash from Boogie Basham. That was nice to see. I don't recall a lot of positive from Starr or Eli Ankow or Ed Oliver. I'm sure on when we go back and watch it, I'm sure some of the plays where we held the point of attack and it was just a mass of people, not letting them run. Those were positive plays, and I'm sure many of them were that interior defensive line. There weren't a ton of flash plays. I don't recall an awful lot of Jerry Hughes or Mario Addison at all. It's hard when they're just running the ball over and over again, and they have a really good offensive line. There's not a ton of opportunity. There's no pass rushing opportunity at all. I don't really know what else they're supposed to do, but it wasn't awful impressive, and it certainly would have been great to see. The one play, Ed Oliver, I think it was on a 17-yard run. He was there. He shot the gap, tried to get a hand on him. David Andrews barely reached him and pushed him out of the way, and the pursuit in his attempt to blow it up in the backfield opened up a pretty big lane behind him. Those are kind of tough. Aaron, what were your thoughts on the D-line?
Yeah, so again, going back to that, it wasn't a crazy bad performance in my opinion, but you saw a pretty significant difference in when the Bills were on defense, just even getting pushed a yard or so with that Pats offensive line. They were always getting pushed forward. They were always getting yards going forward, where on the other side of the ball, the Bills offensive line got no push whatsoever on any plays. And so that's really where it showed up to me the most in the run game. Was not that the Bills, in my opinion, were just god awful in the run, but they were always being pushed forward. And granted, they were able to hold them to 3rd and 4s and 3rd and 5s, and the Patriots weren't able to convert those 3rd downs with continued run plays. But the fact that the Bills were always being pushed forward, there was a few times they shot gaps and were able to. Ed Oliver got in a couple of times with some penetration, but no crazy flash plays. And like you said, Greg, some of those where, the couple where Milano got through, or where guys were able to come through and make tackles in the backfield, that was most likely the linemen doing their job. So not all bad, but again, a super tough game to judge when you have 3 pass plays and they were very quick passes. You can't get any pass rush going. And that's what this team has decided to build this defense for, is a modern NFL, on both sides of the ball. And this might be something we talk about at the end of the show here is, everybody's been clamoring for, analytics say the game's going one way. And then, here's New England, and regardless of the weather, New England's going the other way in terms of style of football. And so when you meet teams like this that are built to play in games like this, you're going to lose the line of scrimmage and in the trenches more times than not.
Yeah, not great stuff. I mean, this Bills defense as a whole, and especially the defensive line, like just sticking with it here, they're not built for a smash mouth football game. They are not built to defend teams running at them over and over and over again. They're built to have guys like Boogie Basham or F.A. Obata kick inside and get reps at defensive tackle. And not that that's awful, but that doesn't scream run stuff. And that doesn't scream like strong at point of attack and take on 2 blockers. Like when Starlet Tulele is your biggest guy in theory, like your space eater type of guy, that means you are, thank you very much, Thomas. I'm just going to read his comment here, because it's an awesome donation and it's spot on. Thank you so much, Thomas.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Frustrating game. Defense overall was good, -1 play. Offense, though, coaches need to unleash Allen. Also, I need my $40 million a year QB to see the field better. Overall, this game is weird for the win. We'll see what happens the rest of the year. Thomas, I think you hit on multiple points that we spoke about, and we'll continue to speak about, especially when we get to the coaching piece. So thank you again for the comment and the donation, Thomas. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
And for Craig, we appreciate you. 410 people watching, only 45 likes. Just because you didn't like the Bills game doesn't have to you have to like our show.
Maybe you don't like what I'm saying, but these guys are pretty good.
You don't have to like Aaron, but at least like what I'm saying. That's
so
worth hitting the like button.
Yeah, they and just you guys hit it on the head. I don't think there's too much more to say when it comes to the D line. They're not built for, unfortunately, like this kind of game, and it's easy to get pushed around when you're coming up against bigger guys who are running at you, and that's when it happened. That's what happened tonight. And in order to counteract that, you have to be very gap sound, and you have to outgap the offense. And oh, that's super funny. Cover one is the only good thing about the season. Thank you very much. And yeah, that didn't happen. Like when you're going up against a more physical, more talented and bigger offensive line against your defensive front, you always have to be in your gaps and you always have to pursue properly. And if you're just a half a second off here or there, you give up big plays like we saw tonight. And again, being light up front it's great for defending the pass and wanting to compress things in theory against like Patrick Mahomes. but it's not great against a team who has wide receivers that are able to crack down on your defensive ends. And then you got big guys who can play bully ball up front. And that's what we saw tonight.
And I think moving to the next level was maybe one of the more frustrating things to see was not only the play, but also the reaction to things. Matt Milano made 2 awesome plays in critical moments when it mattered. He also got the crap kicked out of him that entire drive. He got dominated, and I was screaming at my TV, can you get off a block once? Can you just, like, every time an offensive lineman touches you, does that mean that you're just out of the play forever now? You're never allowed to get off a block? So I know that Tremaine Edmonds is always the whipping boy, and he's always the one everybody goes after. Well, guess what? On that 64-yard touchdown, Matt Milano and Micah Hyde both grossly over-pursued, along with Tremaine Edmonds. He also did, but all anybody talked about was Tremaine Edmonds over-pursuing. Go back and watch the play. The 2 other people you see just flying from right to left on your TV screen were Matt Milano and Micah Hyde. They both went way,
they all
too
over-pursued.
Yeah, I don't know if Tremaine did. I don't know if Tremaine over-pursued that play. I think he was going to the
help being blocked along with it.
But there was 2 gaps, and I think Tremaine was moving towards that other gap, and the other responsibility was for Milano and Hyde. We'll see. I'll defer to Eric on that when I'm sure he's going to break down that play ad nauseum.
Yeah.
But Tremaine Edmonds was absolutely had plenty of responsibility to go around in this game too. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, Greg, in this game is, we're talking about the defensive line and looking for why this run game got out of control at times in this game. And I do think it was more in the linebacking core than anything, because I think for the most part, the defensive line, they got pushed up front, but it wasn't crazy egregious all night long. That 164-yarder, everybody lost that play. You don't give up a massive play like that unless there's a huge gaping hole and a bunch of over pursuit. But the linebackers, man, you expected more, getting them back healthy, getting Star in front of these guys, having everybody for a game. They're going to run. You're trying to sell out for the run. And we didn't see Milano, like you said, Greg. I was yelling on my screen the whole time. Like, he should have been shooting gaps all night long, knowing that you're selling out for the run. Like, he is that wrecking ball type guy, play with your hair on fire. We should have seen that before those 2 possibly game-changing plays that didn't end up actually changing anything. That's what we should have seen out of these super freak athletic hair on fire linebackers all night.
I'm really glad that McDermott, they said, went onto the field during that timeout break and told Milano, like, hey, don't wait. As soon as you see the guard pull, shoot behind him. Well, that was great. I wish that he had been doing that earlier in the game instead of getting blocked every single play. Right. So yeah, like I get it that it's a big play, but the same thing, Tremaine Edmonds made big plays too and made big stops as it was going, but everybody beats up on him all the time. Anything Milano does only ever gets praised. Well, I'd like to see him not get off of a block once. Like, that would be wonderful. And that it's not only when he shoots a gap. I saw some missed tackles. Any other thoughts on the linebacking core?
No, I just wish they made more plays and that we won.
As we move into the secondary, I think the calling card of this secondary that we've talked about plenty is supposed to be their ability to come up and make plays in the run, their ability to be sound tacklers, their ability to really support that sense of, hey, keep everything in front of you, but rally and tackle. I had missed tackles for Taron Johnson, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Dane Jackson. On the whole, they were there to rally. They did a fine job. All of the bigger runs were because of over pursuit or missed tackles. A horrible one got saved for Jordan Poyer that got called back on a holding penalty that would have been another huge play that didn't count. All of them had some regrettable plays they'd like to have back. And some of them, 2 of them I marked on for Taron. They weren't huge. It was, hey, he had a chance to get him at the line of scrimmage and it ends up a 7-yard play. Like, hey, it wasn't a backbreaker, but man, that would have been great to get him at the line of scrimmage and have for no gain. Some of those plays are tough. I'm asking Taron Johnson, who's 185 pounds, to tackle Ramondre Stevenson, who's like 240. Like, it's asking a lot, but hey, when we're going to be a base nickel defense, that's what you got to do. I don't think it was the best night. It's, that's not what we're built for. We're built as a modern, fast, aggressive pass defense. We're not built to go 46 plays there. I think it was stretching the limits of it, but it wasn't the best game from the secondary. I would have loved a big play somewhere, strip a ball, do something, make a play. Aaron, what were your thoughts on the secondary?
Yeah, I guess the only thing is sort of like you said, the ability to come up and make a big play at some point. Some of those run blitzes, I would have liked to see, more of that and hitting home with that, and just that type of aggression. We knew they were running the ball. It was 35 straight runs at some point, like just totally sell out on it. Let Mac Jones beat you in the air if they're going to make a trick play at some point and go all in on Mac Jones. So I guess that, you kind of said it best of where they were with the mistakes and things like that. But sell out on it, run blitz, use your guys and tackle. That was the big thing going into this game. Was losing Trey White sucks, but if there was ever a game to lose Trey White, it's in a game like this where you need the run support and tackling, because he's not fantastic at that. And that just wasn't really there today. So not much more to add. And of course, it would have been nice to see the ball go in the air a few more times. I hope when we go to New England and play, because I do think that is a strength.
I think they can take advantage of Mac Jones. We just didn't get a chance to see it tonight.
Exactly. I think that this secondary has a ton of opportunity to take advantage of his putting the ball in the air. It just wasn't tonight.
I think the Pats only passed it 3 times because they were scared of Levi and scared of Dane.
That's what it
was. Just one last point. Greg, you started to mention it, and I think you guys have all hit on everything, the secondary and the linebackers. I think everything was all just like guys not playing great and could have made some plays and didn't. It's all, descriptive of the entire defense. But Jordan Poyer is having an all-pro season. And I love the play that you mentioned there, Greg. It gets called back on the hold. He came up and got shook out of his shoes by Ramondre Stevenson very, very badly. Taron had some misplays. Micah Hyde had an over pursuit and some misplays. All these things. I don't love Tremaine Edmonds and how he's played. I constantly find myself defending him because everybody wants to make him the whipping boy for this defense. There are plenty of players who have made mistakes and gaffes and over pursuits and all these things just as much as Tremaine. I hope for the vocal crowd that is always wanting to throw him under the bus. Well, Tremaine didn't make a play tonight. Tremaine didn't make a play tonight. I just hope everyone is that vocal when Micah Hyde doesn't make a play and Jordan Poyer doesn't make a play. Yeah. And Matt Milano made a bunch of plays, but to Greg, to your point, he could not get off blocks tonight with a decent amount of regularity, and Starr was getting blocked and all these things. So the problems that we're seeing with this team are bigger than any one player. And if you watch a Bills game like tonight and your immediate response after is, well, Tremaine Edmonds didn't make a play, you're watching football wrong. And I don't mean to make that insulting to someone, but if your takeaway from this game is Tremaine Edmonds didn't play good, that's your takeaway from this game, I don't know what to tell you. Because no, he didn't have the best game, but he's not the reason the Bills lost 14-10. Like, there's a multitude of other things that are going on here, and you just got to have that perspective. And I just hope for everyone that wants to throw all these people under the bus, you're doing that holistically, because we could do that for a lot of players over the last several weeks, and especially tonight.
You don't lose a game like this, one guy. Like, there's a lot baked in to why the Bills lost this game.
Yes. Yeah, and here GPS saying, I respect the front office and coaches that brought us up to be a competitive team, but we are a wild card at best. You cannot let this happen at home. I don't want to hear about the process anymore. I get it. It's frustrating to be able to see a game like this and to see the opportunity that was there come aside. And for the spotlight player, I'm just going to mix this in with the coaching that we're going to get to afterwards. You guys feel free to mix in a player if you'd like to spotlight, but I'm going to spotlight the coaching staff. I think that on the offensive coaching staff, it was interesting at first. I was okay, but I was interested when, both McKenzie and Stevenson are sitting. I would have thought you would have wanted to have the speed option to they at that point, when you had to make that decision at like 6:50, the weather was still egregious and horrible. And at that point, I would actually guess they didn't think they could throw the ball 30 times at that moment. It's really interesting that you sat them. And then when you sat them, you still had Matt Breida. Aaron and I sat there in the stadium. We watched them run jet motion and outside creative runs in different pieces to be able to get the ball moving. And then you didn't do any of it. Like, so much of it, we just sat there in shotgun and no motion, no movement, just sat there like, hey, this is what we're doing. there was a couple plays where they brought some motion. I saw Knox go in motion a couple times to try to indicate zone versus man. But there was no deception, no creativity, no movement to get anything going. And, I thought that there was a ton of opportunity to do play action repeatedly tonight. And they did some. There was some play action. I thought there was a ton of opportunity, especially on first down, to have some play action that I didn't see barely any of it. I was frustrated, and I know it's a weird weather setup, and you're limited on how much of the playbook is available to you. I thought that they could have done more with what they had available. Then you pivot over to Sean McDermott, and I get some of the moments that the challenge was really bad. I know what he saw. I saw it too. It looked like he was short at the moment that they blew the whistle.
And you're desperate. You're desperate.
And it's a critical moment, and it would be a huge turnover. You have to have somebody tell you that, hey, there's no evidence here. There's no possibility that they're going to overturn this. And I know a couple of people said, well, it was really late in the play clock, and they were trying to stop it anyways, and it's better to run a challenge, to throw a challenge flag than just to waste the time out by itself. Maybe. I don't think that was the case.
Then you also lose a challenge if you need it later. And I don't, Greg, somebody doesn't have to tell them that, man. I was sitting on my couch, and my wife, who's knitting, watching the game, she doesn't care. She doesn't care, and she goes, why is he challenging that? Like, she understands what the word conclusive means.
Yeah.
Right? Like, conclusive is pretty clear. Like, you need, on these types of plays where the refs call it one way, you need absolutely conclusive data. And these types of plays, I don't know the statistics on those getting overturned, but they just don't. I never see it. I watch Red Zone every week that the Bills aren't playing, and I never see
only ones
those.
Are when there's definitive of a knee down where he continues moving afterwards. And honestly, that was my secret hope, was like, oh, they're going to flip it around on the other side. We're going to be able to see his knee went down and that he was short. And somebody told him in his
super secret view they had upstairs. Sure.
Literally. Like, that was my delusional mind, was like, all right, just please, when they come back from commercial, tell me that there was some awesome view of Mac Jones' knee being on the ground, and that's what they're going to show me. And they come back like, yeah, we looked the whole time while you were at commercial and we didn't see anything. Then later the play call comes in, which I have to assume was another probably lacking creativity play call from Brian Daboll on the night. Josh doesn't like it and is like, well, hold on, I better call timeout and run another one here. All season, I will say, for as much as people can question challenges, aggressiveness, fourth calls, we're really good at timeout management. We almost never waste timeouts. The end of game, the end of half, we almost always have 3 timeouts left. They're very, very consistent about good time management. I think they have good analytics guys up there in McDermott's ear. They're pretty good at that. Obviously, tonight, those 2 timeouts would have been awful helpful.
In hindsight,
at the end of the game, they go 3 and out, but they're able to just run the clock out. And then the weird thing with the Milano injury. So, and then Thomas here adding one more thing in on the defensive side. I don't want to leave Leslie Frazier out. I think that when you get to the 35th consecutive run play, every once in a while, maybe throw a 5th defensive lineman on the field, maybe do a 5th defensive lineman and a 3rd linebacker. Try a couple different things, dare them to throw the ball, dare them to make them put him in the air with Mac Jones. I get it. And I think you were accurate the way that you described it, Aaron. The run defense wasn't as bad as it felt. It felt horrible. It felt
and
like,
if you look at yards were bad.
Yeah, our soul taken from us. Yeah. In the hindsight, it was actually okay. Like, it was, we talked about the number of first downs. They only
gave them a chance to win the game.
241 total yards, 14 total points. We had 2 possessions inside the 13-yard line of the New England Patriots at the end of the game. Either of those turned into points, we win the game. Like, hey, they have plenty of opportunities there. I would have loved all 3 of them. Brian Daboll and Leslie Frazier, more creativity. Sean McDermott, I would have loved to see better time management, better challenge allocation. I don't know that I saw a lot of people saying things about we were unprepared. We weren't ready for this. I don't think I saw that. I don't know that that's what I experienced.
They were playing hard.
Yeah, they were playing hard. They were ready. They had
The worst soft
held
stuff. I still have issues with the team is soft. Like that one's a tough one for me. Like if you go up against a run game that's executing well, you can be hard. I guess it's the opposite of soft. You can be.
Kaiir is interesting. Read that for me, Anthony.
Awesome comment here from Craig, and thank you for the donation here, Craig. Craig said Sean McD seemed a little too animated on the sidelines for my liking. Exudes a sense of panic, not confidence, and control in a big game on Monday night.
I hadn't thought that before. Like I'd have to think about it a little bit more, but
I think we saw him when there was bad calls.
Correct.
Also, which we saw there was that call. Josh got hit on the sideline, and it was a roughing or an unnecessary roughness. And Belichick lost his freaking mind for like 6 plays after that. He was still yelling at the official. So I think you can flash to any coach and find moments like that. I don't know how consistently he was like that.
There is an awesome comment there for Thomas.
I'm ready for the coach who never punts to coach special teams here. He's available.
It's the McDermott piece is interesting. So I don't know how much they showed it on the broadcast, but he starting in the first quarter, he was in the ref's ear nonstop, just very demonstrative, very upset. I think he was upset at how the Patriots were substituting on offense, and he wanted penalties or he wanted something done, and he was going after the refs hard. And then there was one play where I know it was in the first half. I think it was the second quarter. He wanted a flag to be thrown, and the refs did throw the flag, but then they gave the Patriots the timeout, and McDermott just lost it. And Stephon Diggs took his coat off and was also yelling at the refs about it. That came in a string of like, I kept because
really good perspective from Mac here. We literally saw Bill Belichick throw a phone on national television last year on a Monday Night Football game. So probably fair to say that, maybe Sean McDermott wasn't too animated and panicky. We literally saw him have a tantrum on live TV. Right. So it's good.
But he was definitely a little humor to it. That's awesome. He was definitely demonstrative and like, I don't want to say emotional because I feel like that it puts a different image out there, but he had a lot of gripes.
Illegal formation.
Oh, there you go, Shane. He was upset for
like when they were literally putting like 10 guys on the line of scrimmage and be like, nah, it's fine. They're all allowed up there. Like,
that's fine. Yeah, we don't need to do that. What's the line of scrimmage? We don't know. Yeah, it was not great. And for player of the game, I know we're talking about coaches and stuff. I thought Tyrell Dodson did pretty good coming in on spot duty after Klein gets COVID. He made a couple tackles, and I thought he was interesting, and I'm just going to name him because everybody else made me sad.
Okay.
That's it. Aaron,
I'm going to continue on the coaching, and the decision to try the field goal against the wind, a 35-yard field goal. I know Tyler Bass can push the ball, and I know that, you get the right not gust of wind, and maybe that goes in.
Yeah.
I'm going for it. And that's you need one score, and you just got to get 6.
And you want to know the only time that 3 points matters if you're going to kick another field goal.
Correct.
Like otherwise,
against the wind, you're not getting the wind to your back anymore.
It was already the fourth quarter. The only time that was going to matter is if you were going to kick another field goal, because otherwise the other score would have also been a touchdown, which would also have given you the lead. It just was bad math. Yes. It was bad math.
I missed. Who won the toss?
The Bills won the toss and chose to defer to the second half.
Correct.
When they deferred to the second half,
Belichick picked.
They could have no. The Bills had the choice. Your first choice is okay. It's now the second half. You have the choice.
Right.
You could either choose the wind or the ball, which I will say in the moment, Josh was throwing the ball decently. My first thought was, hey,
get up early.
I don't know if you want to give up a possession. I want to get up early, take the lead, and then let the defense control it. Obviously, you have the drop there that we go, that was a 3-and-out. Let me look real quick. Where we come out and they immediately
it was a quick
through.
Drive. Yeah.
There was one first down quick to Beasley, then 3 plays to go out, and the final one was where he misses Diggs.
And you got nothing except for that.
And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, we should have taken the wind. As soon as nothing happened with the drive, I was like, oh no, Yeah, why didn't we just take the win and be able to have it in the
and
fourth
then you get
quarter?
in the fourth. Yeah, that ended up being something that I don't know how much McDermott got outcoached or clowned or outclassed by Belichick. I think there was some execution stuff by the players. But McDermott made some mistakes.
They had some lack of discipline penalties on the Patriots too.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. But that might be the decision that really ultimately cost him, because then you put Tyler Bass out there, who's a legitimate weapon in a game like this. Kicking into the wind in the fourth was when it's going to matter the most. Kicking into the wind in the fourth,
and having the wind with the stronger legged kicker in the fourth could have been a big deal. Could have really mattered.
Then you may get the 2 field goals. But going for that one and taking the field goal, it felt like a chump move, to be honest. I don't care what analytics say. You got to factor in where you are, the environment you're in. Give Josh Allen a chance to get the score, because then you're in hindsight's 2020, but your defense goes and gets a 3 and out and gets you the ball back again anyway. You trust your defense in that scenario. Like, the ball's already down there. You're not going to get a better situation. Go for it. And if you don't make it, you get the ball back and you go for it again. And that's the thing that I think drove me the most nuts about McDermott tonight.
Yeah. And I think we're pretty careful not to throw around terms like soft or
I just called McDermott a chump
or something
chump
like
move.
That. Well, but the hard part is like that. That was such a low upside move. There was so little positive that could have come from that. One, you're giving up field position with the miss. You have the possibility of a bad snap, block. All the other weird things that can happen with the weather, just like we took timeouts just to force them to punt, because weird stuff can happen. You never know. Like, that was smart. That was fine at the end of the second half. You don't want to take a timeout early, and then it's 4th and 2, and they're running the ball and had a timeout, and all of a sudden, heck, it was a short yardage conversion play that they broke the 64-yarder on. Like, sometimes when you're stacked up there in the box, if they break one tackle, that's where big plays happen. I get that. But later on, I don't want to, chump or cowardly or how you want to term it, but it wasn't smart. That wasn't the smart play, because there was so little upside that could come from that field goal decision. If we make it, it's 14-13. We still need another score. You're kicking off again. You're not pinning them deep. Like, there was so little good that was going to come from that. Give yourself a chance. Davis Ford with a good one. Tommy Sweeney with the sack of the night. Yeah, Matt Judon literally used him as a weapon and literally knocked Josh Allen down with Tommy Sweeney on that play. After, was that before or after Dawson Knox jumped offsides? I think it was right
the play after.
I think it was the next play afterwards.
Very Billsy to get a penalty, then a sack, and just push yourself.
Yeah, the 2 tight ends having a competition of who could mess up.
Another thing on coaching here that I want to bounce off you guys. The punting game was a mess all night, right? You weren't going to be fielding punts in that type of wind. Why didn't they line up and just not even have anybody back there and just try to block everything? The punter's not going to throw a fake. Mac Jones can't even throw the ball that far in that wind. The punter's not going to put the ball out there in that way. Go at him. At least a couple times.
Yes. Well, and the one time they were lined up to do it.
Yes.
But then pulled off, and then they had the weird penalty, and that. Yeah. I don't know. Anthony, anything you want to rant about?
I'm just everything. I'm just sad. This sucks. I had a rough week last week. I was really hoping the Bills would brighten my spirits. They didn't. I feel worse.
Freeform's got 25 Days of Christmas.
Oh, that's sweet. And Hallmark's got some great Christmas movies. Hallmark's got these awesome movies where they're all the same thing.
Candace Cameron stars in like everything.
She just kills it. Candace Cameron, Lacey Chabert, it's fantastic. I love it. Like, I'm like a big city executive. I don't like Christmas. I'm just a down-home person. I love Christmas. We're going to get together and be together forever, and it's great. Hey, like, let's bond.
If this cover one thing doesn't work for us, we could get into writing here and just
cover one Hallmark.
Movies.
Let's get
cover one Christmas movies.
Hallmark and wrestling. That's what cover one is. No, it was just I don't even want to like speak on too much of it because I think you guys hit with all of it. It's just disappointing overall. One thing that I really thought with the Patriots going single high, like this is the one thing that is like sticking in my brain. And Greg, you mentioned it with the play action. We saw the Bills go with personnel and formation against the Jets to make them bring an extra defender down into the box and go single high, and then they killed them with play action over and over again. It is a proven thing in the NFL that what hurts, single high defenses and defenses with an extra safety in the box is play action and crossers and things like that. And the Bills did none of it. The Pats gave them that look over and over and over and over, and we didn't do anything to try and attack that. It seemed I would have loved some more play action. That is one thing that is just sticking in my brain, or some attempts to get Josh on the move. I felt like this was another similar to the Steelers game where it just seemed like we were just bashing our heads against the wall, and we're like, no, eventually one of these bricks is going to crack and we're going to get through that wall. And it was just like, nope, it's not cracking. Nope, it's not cracking, but don't worry, it will. And I was disappointed with that. And you guys nailed it with the inactives to start the game. I thought that was interesting. I just have a lot of questions overall, and I'm in a bad place with that because such a great point for this Bills team for us, right? After the years of ineptitude and the drought and all the different leaderships and the regimes, the one thing that we had faith in coming into this year, well, I mean, we had faith in multiple things, and I don't want to say that we shouldn't have faith anymore, so don't take it as that, but the people steering the ship, we felt very confident in that. Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, the leadership that we had there. And now, from an on-field perspective, I start to find myself, and I feel like you guys are in there to a similar degree, and I know a lot of the people listening and watching are, where I'm starting to question some of the coaching staff and some of that leadership piece. And I had questions about the drafting coming into this year, and now it seems like some of those things are rearing its ugly head. And I also think there's a horrible timing piece going on in the NFL right now where that's not true. Max, sorry. Max's comment is play action is only effective when your runners are a legitimate threat. That's not true. That is not true. It's definitely helpful. Like if you have a legitimate running game and run play action, that's fantastic. But you can have successful play action without having.
I do agree with what what's his name, the Chargers coach there, Brandon Staley, said about establishing physicality matters in the run game. And the Bills aren't able to do that at all.
No, they're not able to establish that at all.
The one point I want to make here about people who are saying like the team's soft or aren't tough enough, the biggest rebuke of that was the end of that drive that I picked out as the drive of the game that you picked out, Aaron, as the turning point that gave them a shot. If you were going to get worn down all game, if you were going to get run on all game and you get late into the fourth quarter, that's the moment that is supposed to cash in for the Patriots. That's the moment when you have 1st and 10, 1st and goal at the 10-yard line, where you've now run the ball 34 straight plays. That's the moment where that's supposed to now be tangible value that, hey, we have imposed our will and displayed physicality all throughout the game. We have now controlled this. Here's where we benefit from that. And they lost yards 3 straight plays. Like that. That's what that was. Thomas here saying, hopefully this is a low light of a great season. This is such a weird season league wide. Every loss we walk away saying this team hasn't hit their stride yet. 5 games left to do it.
I feel like every other week's a low light though.
And it has been. It has been because we've literally now one lost for 6 straight games here with 3 extra or 8 straight games, 4 losses in this stretch. The couple silver linings to take away from this as we give our final thoughts. The Bills were still a back shoulder throw away from winning this game, a 60-yard bomb connecting and not moving in the wind away from winning this game. Dawson Knox, going over top of a defender to catch the ball from winning this game. 1 block being picked up so Josh can see Stephon Diggs open in the middle of the field. Josh going to Beasley on the inside slant instead of going back to Davis where he had the other touchdown. Any one of those, you are now 1 play away from winning that game. And this conversation is totally different. We've now taken back control of the division. We've now dominated where we needed to. I can't believe the Patriots were so embarrassed of their quarterback that they only threw the ball 3 times. It was that close on 5 different plays. All 5 had to go against the Bills to then lose in this situation. Like we said, a field goal. Their field goal moved 8 yards in the air, just barely inside the upright. Our field goal moved 8 yards in the air, just outside the upright. If those go the other way, it's 13-11 Bills and they win. It's all those things are all factors of what's going on here. They are 7-5. They still have winnable games down the stretch. They still have a very achievable path to double-digit wins and a playoff spot and to get hot at the right time. All of those things are still possible. It is frustrating.
They're making it harder and harder on themselves.
They're making it harder on themselves. And I meant what I said before. Everything is on the table. Yeah. All things. The Bills, as impossible as it is to see right now, can still win the Super Bowl. They can also miss the playoffs. Totally. They could also completely miss the playoffs and have this season go down the tubes and be an outright disaster. Missing the playoffs would be a disaster of a season. That's possible. They can also get hot at the end of the year and go on a run and win the Super Bowl. All of those things are still on the table.
So can the Rams, who were right there with the Bills as a Super Bowl favorite going into the preseason. This is a weird year in the NFL.
Super weird.
A very weird year. There's no dominant team in the AFC. Even with this win for the Patriots, I don't think that they were a dominant team tonight. I don't think that they're an unbeatable team going forward. I wanted the 1 seed, right? I wanted to win the East again. I wanted to sweep the East again. It's just not that this is a really weird year. It's hard to do that multiple times in a row. What the Patriots did for 20 years is incredibly difficult. That dynasty was real. Like, as much as we want to crap on them, all that stuff's very real. It's hard to do this in the NFL over and over again. The Bills still, I think, are very much in position to be in the playoffs. I think they will be a double-digit win team. I think there's going to be some teams hanging out around 500 that get into the playoffs this year, the way this AFC is shaping up. There might be a 9-win team that sneaks into that 8th spot. But I think the Bills will be there no matter how the rest of this shakes out around the AFC. And for this year being so weird and with no team being the clear favorite, I said it on the pregame show, like, yeah, I want that number 1 seed and get that rest and get the home games. But I think it matters probably less than it ever has, because I feel like the Bills can go to any, what is this?
If ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
I would have a Merry Christmas no matter what. Nobody will ever ruin Christmas for me. But this team, again, it is, we talk about it all the time, Greg, it's about getting hot at the right time. Wild cards have gone on to win the Super Bowl. Just happened a year ago. And they even stumbled into the playoffs. They almost lost games in the playoffs. The Buccaneers did.
Hey, do you know what the Buccaneers record was?
7-5.
Low point
7-5. Sucker.
Yeah.
They were 7-5.
And I'm not saying the Bills are going to run the table the rest of the
Yes, we are.
The Bills are the 2020 Buccaneers and are winning a championship.
They're going to run it and win Super Bowl. But it's possible, right? And so I saw a number of people on my timeline saying, oh, the season's over, pack it up. Like, you're welcome to stop watching the Buffalo Bills. Go for it. I want people to follow us next weekend. That's going to be another big game. Yes, the Bills are backing themselves into a corner, just like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, but it's not all over. This is still a good team, very good players. Probably not going to play in the crazy amount of wind that we saw again. I guarantee you next week's going to be really nice in Tampa Bay, and we'll be able to
watch it be a downpour.
Oh, come on.
Shut up.
Get out of here. Go back to what you were doing.
Out into the universe, you monster.
God. Anyways, the one thing, though, I do want, before I pass it over to Ian for his final thoughts, I've seen nothing but talk about domes.
I don't know what happened. Anthony left the show. I don't know what happened.
I love it.
That's so mean.
And now you messed up where we all are.
Now we're all out of order.
I put everybody.
I've seen so much talk about domes tonight. I get it. The weather sucked. It was terrible out. It was still optics wise probably a fun game for people that weren't Bills fans and Patriots fans. There was bad weather in the Kansas City game this weekend too, you guys, and Kansas City found a way to win. The Buffalo Bills have prided themselves on saying the find a way is the thing for this season. They didn't do that tonight. And I got bad news for all the people that want domes. I don't care either way. The Bills can build a dome, put a roof on the stadium. I really don't care. I have no strong feelings.
I won't be upset if they do.
No, I don't care. But you know what? You're not getting it for 5 years. They're not building a stadium next year with a dome.
Even if, like, say tonight was the moment
they decided that
Terry Pagula sat there and went, "Oh my God, we got to have a dome." You're right. You want to know what? And they even said it that Josh has been very good about not publicly saying anything, but the Monday Night Football crew leaked it. Right. That, hey, during practice we were over there talking to the Pagulas, and as Josh ran by, he joked to them, "Hey, you guys thinking about building the dome?" He wants that. He wants the controlled elements there too. even if tonight is that moment, the straw that broke the camel's back, you want to know what? I know it's $400 billion more. Screw it. We're in.
Yeah.
That's not coming till like 2026. We
This
got a
team-
long time.
This team needs to figure out how to win no matter the conditions, because the NFL gets worse. You saw that graphic I put out of open air stadiums and snowfalls and most of the North Atlantic. Most of the NFL plays outdoors. You're going to deal with elements. This team needs, and in January, December, January, and if you want to get into February, you have to be able to win in the elements and get rid of the excuses. Let's get a dome, but that's not coming for a long time. So the people that just want to use that as an excuse constantly get in this chat and just say, dome, we need it. It's not coming. Stephon Diggs will be long gone before we get a dome. All this potent offense that we have right now in this Super Bowl.
Like Josh Allen and like 3 more people on the roster will still be.
Yes, absolutely. The Super Bowl window is in this 3 to 5 year window that it's going to take to build that stadium. So they've got to figure it out now. I'm done. Go ahead, Anthony. You can kick me off the show for the rest of the night.
Bring us home.
I think there's something to be said, a larger picture conversation that is too long for this episode and where we are right now. But the idea of how this Bills team is built and how the NFL and football is cyclical and how we seem to be changing, and the Bills are maybe built for a type of NFL that is at the end of its run and are not built for a newer changing repeat of a cyclical NFL when it comes to running game and 2 high coverages and all these things. But again, that's why you have coaches. That's why you have front office organizations to redirect your resources and properly allocate them in order to build and go forward. For everything or everyone in the comments saying it's so funny to see the comments. Some people think we're too positive. Now, other people thought we were super negative and terrible because we were like, Isaiah McKenzie's decision-making isn't great.
Lions fan in here helping us out. They got their win this week. They ran a play. We tried to run the exact same play. Yeah, ran the slot, tried to run the slot through, hit the slant behind him. That's what they tried to do to Davis. Congrats on your on your win. Last week.
That was a solid one, and it came against Minnesota, which I thought was funny because they're kind of miserable sometimes.
We built closing thing from Davis Ford. Really appreciate you guys. This team has been breaking my heart. Aaron's knitting comment somehow made me smile.
My wife knitted me I'll post them on Twitter, some really nice Bills mittens during the game.
Some mittens. Some mittens.
I like it.
We'll see where we go. Tampa Bay is going to be huge next week, and I think everybody. I mean, it's impossible to say, but don't get too high after the wins. Don't get too low after the losses. The Bills still have quality in this football team. It's just a matter of whether or not we can execute week in and week out and properly design a game plan to attack our opponents, which is what you need to do every week. But right now that's suddenly in question. And awesome comment there from Tony. Great. We're copying the Lions. Yeah, maybe not.
Wonderful.
Maybe not the team to watch and be like, yes, let's do that. It's going to be a roller coaster going through the rest of this regular season. And even if they get into the playoffs, like, what do we see? What do we expect? I think that's the most frustrating thing with this Bills team is I don't think the season's over, and I don't think this team is done. But I think it's also very fair to not know what to expect week in and week out from this team, from a game plan standpoint, from an execution standpoint. And luckily for everyone, Cover One is going to be here to guide you through these tough times and hold your hand on this roller coaster, on the ups and the downs and all these things. But everybody needs to strap in because it's going to be wild. And next week is a huge, huge game.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of repeated comments, and we're going to hear this on Twitter, and Twitter's probably worse than our comments on the show here tonight, that the Bills didn't show up. And we literally just rattled off 5 different plays where they were that close to winning the game. Not showing up. If you wanted to accuse them of not showing up in the Colts game, where they got beat pretty bad, and that was just a poor performance and an embarrassment. Like, okay, I kind of get it there. That's not the case tonight. Like, they absolutely showed up. They had a chance to win the game. They had the ball inside the Patriots' 13-yard line twice in the fourth quarter with an opportunity to win this game. If they just executed, Stephon Diggs is there on a back shoulder throw. It was right there to be able to do it. The wind blew it just barely out of his reach. That's an amazing touchdown that's on J.C. Jackson. Stephon Diggs beat him in coverage and was there for a game-winning touchdown. It's absolutely right there. Everybody's celebrating an amazing win. They did show up. That's not accurate to say that they didn't show up. They didn't execute on all the plays. They did not execute when they needed to. That is fair criticism. Aaron shared a lot of really good criticism on the coach. Anthony went through the offensive line, the running game, the secondary, that we did not execute and play great. But to say they didn't show up or got embarrassed or just got dominated, they didn't get dominated. They were that close to winning. Like, hey, it sucks. It's just not the case. Like, be reasonable in how you approach this.
I have a question for both of you right now. Whoever wants to answer first, go ahead. What is your biggest area of concern for this team right now? Could be on field, could be off field. What is your biggest concern for this team right now in 2021?
I'll take it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Lack of ability to win in trenches with any consistency. I think football's won in the trenches, and we saw it last year against Kansas City, and I think they tried to address the pass rush side of it, but I think that there was more to the lack of ability to win in the trenches, and they still can't win in the trenches with any consistency.
Yeah, for me, it's the cascading effect of the offensive line specifically. I have so much concern about there. I think that impacts the red zone effectiveness. I think that impacts the flaws that we see in Josh's game, where you're, struggling to figure out, is it because he's not looking downfield? Is because he's not making the right reads? Any of those different pieces. The reality is that he doesn't have time consistently to throw. I don't think that's going to change this year. I think it'll be a huge focus in the offseason over the last 5 games here. And where I keep saying, hey, they could get hot in the playoffs and be able to make something crazy. That's only going to happen if he has time. And that, I don't know that that's magically going to happen here. And that's my biggest concern, is that, that cascading effect of just not having consistent blocking up front creates so many other domino effect problems. It can happen. I think Josh is special enough to make up for it. I think Stephon Diggs is special enough to overcome pieces of it. They can. It will be at the surprise of getting back above par, or at least average, on the offensive line.
That was very well said. Because I was starting to think as we were going through, and I'm like really concerned. Well, I have a lot, but the red zone offense. But then I started to think, Greg, you said it beautifully. I think the red zone offense is a cascading effect of the offensive line, and then second to that, is the trenches on the other side. I just thought that was interesting. I was starting to think of it as I was taking notes and writing all this stuff down, and I was like, I want to get your guys' thoughts. It's going to be a wild ride when you don't have consistent trench play on both sides of the ball, especially from a team that wants to be built inside out, like they say multiple times. It's very concerning.
Craig here asking, what do you think the Bills' record will be at season's end, and do you think they make the playoffs? So right now it's 7-5. I think the Bills are going to finish 10-7, 3-2 the rest of the way. I think they do make the playoffs. I think they'll be in the wild card. I think they might play their first playoff game in New England. And honestly, I won't be heartbroken if that happens. I wouldn't mind seeing them a third time.
I think that's exactly what I think. I ran through it right after the game with the predictors or whatever, what's going to happen in Elam, and I put 10-7, and they had like a 98% chance of making the playoffs at 10-7, and they'll be going up against the Patriots, and I'd love to get back at them.
I think they go 11-6. I think they go 4-1 down the stretch.
I like it. GP, frustrated. It's always right there, and we did have some huge payouts on the roster. And if you want to hear concrete answers, Sean McDermott's press conference is not the place to go for those things.
I don't want to hear coach speak tonight.
Yeah. And appreciate you, Zeka. Appreciate you jumping in here and listening with us. All right. As we kind of wrap things up here, on behalf of our sponsors, Underdog Fantasy, use promo code COVER1 to be able to get yourself $10 free. If you need a vehicle, get over to West Her. They'll be able to help you out. Appreciate you, Louis. So offensive line is absolutely priority, 100%. Appreciate your agreement there in that, after watching how an elite offensive line punched us, it certainly made the difference tonight. I would say the Patriots offensive line was their MVP tonight more than any individual running back or anything else that they did. I don't think their defense was all that special tonight. I thought a couple guys made some plays, but their offensive line was absolutely the MVP of their team tonight. And, all 6 of their offensive linemen out there for whatever 60-70% of their
10
plays.
at some points.
Yeah, a couple times it looked like 10. So appreciate everything that you guys have going on. Aaron, Anthony, any final thoughts for the people?
Leave me alone on Twitter for the next couple of days. I might
log off for a minute.
Yeah, I might take a day off from it. Just try to be, sleep on this. Try to regroup. Try to find some of the silver lining. If not, nobody's forcing you to finish watching this season. If you really think it's done, see ya. Have at it. Nobody's going to force you to watch the Bills. Don't be mean to people. Let's talk it out. I'm a safe place to come talk, but anyone that's going to be mean, I'm not interested in it.
Anthony, how about you?
I'm glad I bought some extra eggnog. I'm going to drink a lot of it. Yep, super pumped. I know Greg hates it. Sorry, Greg. But I'm gonna chug.
I like to let people enjoy things.
See, you're a kind guy. Yeah, I'm gonna drown my sorrows in some nog, and then see
and some Hallmark movies.
And some Hallmark movies. Yeah, this one I was watching today. I'll tell you guys real quick. It was great. So I had never seen it before. This girl is a Christmas decorator for companies, and she meets this guy who's just not really into Christmas.
Okay. We know the story.
I'm pretty sure I know how that one is. All right. Appreciate it, guys. Everybody in the chat, you guys were great tonight. A ton of people jumping in for a really frustrating, game for everything that's there. Craig, very generous of you. And appreciate that's what we want to be here for, is to let you guys vent, a cathartic experience to talk through and be able to get there where you guys are at, and appreciate it. And hey, it could be worse. We could be on here trying to tell you guys that Tyler Thigpen's better than Josh Allen, so it could be worse. We appreciate you guys very, very much. Make sure that you guys check us out here. We'll be here with you all week long. Anthony will be back on Disguise coverage on Wednesday night. We will be jumping into preview the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, going down there and playing them next Sunday, because the season will go on. This is how it's going to work. The schedule is going to continue to play itself out. We got to hope the Bills figure out a way to get themselves right, and we'll be there with you every step of the way. Thanks for checking out everything we have going on here. On behalf of Anthony Prohaska and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.